Today I want to talk a little bit about the JavaScript .filter and .map functions that you can use with arrays. We're going to go over how they work and how you can use them together to get some cool stuff going on. So first I want to talk about the .filter, and then I'm going to talk about the .map, and then I have some extra examples that we're going to go through. So the filter function, well, both of these functions create a new array, so they make a copy of the original array, and they don't affect the original array. And the .filter, you can use to tell it which items it should copy into the new array and which ones it should filter out. The .map will just copy over every single item, but you can do stuff to each one as you go. Let me show you. So with the .filter, we have this array of numbers, and in this array we have two 5s, one here and one here. So let's say you only want to keep the 5s. And I'm just going to console.log these so that we can see what's going on. So we have this array of numbers, and here's basically how the filter function works. It made a new copy of the array, and there's just the two 5s in it. So you have your whatever array you're referencing, you do .filter, and then this is a callback function. Basically inside of here we have an array of numbers. It's going to go through each index in the array, and then for each one we provide it what is the condition that it should keep those elements. So this is like an if statement. If number is equal to 5, keep it. So let's say we want to keep numbers that contain the digit 5. So in this case we want to keep 5, 5, 95, 254, 55, and 85. So same thing, we're going to do our .filter. We have all of these numbers, and for each one we're going to give it an if statement. We want to keep it if number, well, we could do like number.toString and then see if there's a 5 in there. So this turns our integer into a string so that we can do .match. .match is a regular expression. You're looking for this pattern, which is a 5. So it's going to keep all the ones that are a 5, or that have a 5. And then same thing, if we only want to keep numbers greater than 100, filter, here's our if statement, if number is greater than 100. And that's it. That is how easy it is to use filter. And it only keeps the two that are bigger than 100. The .map function is the exact same kind of idea, same setup. And what, in your normal code, you're not going to be console.logging it every time. You're going to be saving this to a new value. So for instance, you would let copy equal array1.map, and here you have your .map function. Now in this case, we want to just make a copy of the array. So what this one does is we say for each number in the array, here's what I want you to copy over to the new array. In this case, we're just copying over that exact number. So we could console.log copy, and it will look the exact same as the original array. But here's the interesting part, is that we can do let copy number 2 equals array1.map, and if we want to, let's say we want to double each value for whatever reason. So in the new array, for each number, make a copy, but put in number times 2. And if we log that, it has each item is doubled. Now, for both the filter and the map, it does not affect the original array, meaning if we console.log the original array here, we're still going to get all of the original values. So you have to make sure when you're using these two functions that you're saving it into a new location. Otherwise, you could be doing everything right, but if you're not saving the new array, the copy that it's making, it's not going to work. So, okay, so we covered that point. So let's do a little bit more with the .filter, because we're going to get into a real life example down here. So maybe you're working with strings and you only want to keep words longer than 5 characters. Let's just keep logging them. Make it easy to see what's going on. So filter, this is an array of strings, and for each string, our if statement, our filter statement is keep it if it's longer than 5 characters. So if the string.length is longer than 5, we want to keep it. So we should get just buffalo and antelope because the rest of these are too short. Only keep words that contain the letter E. Same kind of idea. You have an array of strings. You want to keep the ones that have an E. And horse and antelope have an E. Cat, dog, buffalo don't. Okay, a few more quick examples, and then we'll get into a real-life example. So a JavaScript array can have all kinds of information in it. It doesn't have to just be an array of strings or numbers. It can have strings, it can have null and undefined, it can have integers, it can even have another array inside of there. So maybe you have this array of random stuff, and you want to only keep the ones that are strings. So array3.filter, and now up here, this is just a variable that I'm naming the variable. I'm naming it num or whatever, or string. I do that to make the code easy to read, so I can keep track of, okay, this is an array of strings. But in the docs, if you read through the docs for .filter and .map, it's going to do like element. And this is why, is because they might not all be strings or objects or a number. It could be anything. So for each element, we want to keep the ones that are strings. So if type of element is a string, then we'll keep it. And we kept the Jake, Susie, and Ted. Highlighting the wrong stuff there. But I got rid of all these other ones. This last example is one that I actually use a lot in real life. You want to filter out falsy values, meaning in JavaScript a falsy value would be null or undefined, right? We want to keep these ones that actually have relevant information in them. So we're going to filter out the ones that don't exist or that are falsy. And to do that, we have an array of items or elements, whatever you want to call it, and we want to keep the ones that are not falsy. So this basically just says only keep it if it exists, and by exists we mean not a falsy value. So that should give us our everything except null and undefined. My thing might be in the way. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to comment all of this out so we can look at a real life example. So when you get information out of a database, a lot of times, well, it's going to come back as JSON. So you're going to have an array of objects a lot of times. So maybe you are getting a bunch of users out of your users table. And this is what it would look like. You're going to have an array of objects. Each object represents one item in the database. And you're going to have a bunch of information about that user. ID, name, age, phone number, whatever you have about that user. So let's say that you have all these users in your database, and you want to pull out all of the phone numbers from there. Well, your database is you're basically going to get all this information from your database. And okay, so let objects with phone numbers equal. We're going to filter out the ones that don't have a phone number. So for each object, we want to keep the ones where object.phoneNumber exists. And if we log that, okay, so we got objects 1, 3, and 4, and you'll notice object 2 does not have a phone number. So that worked great. The next step, maybe we only want the phone numbers for people that are over age of 18. Maybe we're going to send a text message out to all these people, and we don't want to text any minors. Okay, so item number 3 here, his age is 17, so we want to filter him out. So you do let, people to text equals dbrecords.filter, And for each object, what's the if statement? We're going to keep it if it has a phone number and the age is greater than or equal to 18. And so that one, I'm going to comment this one out. That one should give us 1 and 4 because they're both over the age of 18 and they have a phone number. Now this is where you would maybe use your dot filter and your dot map together. You can do let phone numbers equal, well, basically this. We're going to get all the phone numbers that we want to text, but this is just getting, this is just getting the objects. So this is returning entire objects, and we just want the phone numbers. So this is where our dot map comes in. For each object, we're going to copy the object over, but we don't want to copy the whole object over. We only want to copy over object.phone number. So this is just going to copy the string over. So we should end up with an array of strings. And if we log that, we get our array of strings, and these are the phone numbers that we're going to send a text message out to in this example. So this is where your dot filter and your dot map can be used together, and it's really useful. You can filter out items that you don't want, and then your dot map can pick out the information that you do want from each item. So that's basically all I have for those. Just one quick extra item here is, if you look at the docs, the dot filter and the dot map both take in 3 parameters: the current element that you're on, the current index, and the entire array. So you can do more stuff with it than what I've showed you here. This would be, if you use it in React, you might see the dot map function, and maybe you have, well, let's just use those database records. You can do, so that would look like this. This is your current element, current index, and the entire array. And you can use that for whatever you need it for. Most of the time, this is the only one you need, with the stuff that I've been showing you at least. In React, a lot of times you'll see people grab this current index as well, so they can use that as the key on. If you're mapping over a bunch of data and creating a div for each one, it needs a unique key, and that's what people will use that for. So this is just one last thing just to show you. It does have multiple parameters that it takes in that you can access. A lot of times with the stuff that I was showing you, at least, you just use that current element. Hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments.